nation under fraud. Completely visible, with lying and spying for all. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy? Yeah,
well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I
did not have sexual relations with that woman.
We'll just leave it a mystery.
That's about how that went. So welcome, Kate Daly Show. I've got Susan on tap today. It's Wednesday, of course, and Melissa and Susan join me. And the debate, that was interesting. If you want to call up and have any comments about that, you're more than welcome. 888-673-1450. It's about how it went. I think little Margaret was really, really fascinated with Walz. She was borderline in love with. I love you. I'll protect you. You don't have to actually answer. I'll just call it a discrepancy. Not that you absolutely lied about the timeline. It's okay. And it was just that the whole time. But Vance did a pretty good job. You have to admit, Vance did a good job. Did you see clips of that, Susan?
I did. I saw the clips, and I have appreciated Vance because they love to say Republicans aren't intellectuals. He is very good with words. Yeah. He's very good. Yeah. And he's very clear in expressing his meaning and catching on and pointing out where the other person's logic is flawed. Yeah. That is very sophisticated behavior. And I think when the Democrats demonize him in their press, then people tune in and they go, oh, we didn't know he was like this. Right. And so I think it surprised quite a few people. Yeah. Because think about how many Democrats were so excited for this. For some weird reason, they were so excited.
I know. And fancy hands, Tampon Tim. I mean, I knew how he was going to do. I knew he'd be terrible at this. And what's funny is the whole nation gauges whether or not they understand the job they're doing on a debate. But it was good to see JD Vance fire back. Now, I've done background on JD, and there's lots of different conflicting thoughts on JD Vance. But as far as the debate goes, yeah, he did a fantastic job. I mean, he was really on top of it. I think he agreed with Walz a little too much for my taste. I think kind of reaching across to, well, we agree here. And I just, seriously, my toenails curl when I hear that, because Walz is such a communist, and it's tough to hear those kinds of things. And I want him to just be very, very hard on abortion. I want him to come out and be like, no, no, and no. And so there's those little things, but at the same time, you have to give credit where credit's due last night. And in front of the nation, he stepped up. JD Vance stepped up. So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people, especially uninformed people, vote according to likability.
Yeah, they do.
And so
do I want to go to lunch
trying
with
to
him?
Play against his stereotype of the cat lady comments.
Right.
And so I That's why they both tried to be nicer than each other, except when it came to January 6th, they kind of got into it a bit. But the public has been so horribly gaslighted on January 6th that the debate really wasn't the place to start bringing out all the lies, the many, many lies.
Right. I know a lot of people felt good about last night. And, you know, I understand why. Because when you watched it, I mean, Tim Walz looked like a scared raccoon. I mean, he just was bizarre, but we kind of thought he was going to be bizarre. And he kept lying. And he he would say stuff like this. And, you know, I would ride, like, he just wants to be like you and I. So I rode my bikes until the lights went out. I enjoyed my service there. It's like, what service? You were riding bikes as a kid. You're so weird. I mean, talk about weirdo. They co-opted the word to try to go to Vance with that word, but they're so strange. He is so weird. I mean, all he could talk about was bringing the youth over to China. And all I kept thinking was, oh my gosh, those poor youth. What happened to the youth that he brought over there? I don't trust that guy in a room with a goldfish. And so he's a creeper. I did have one sort of dark thought, but we're going to talk about good news. Okay. We're going to talk about good news. One of our listeners was like, please talk about good news today. We will. This is Kate. Okay. This is Kate thought. Okay. I felt like not only were they giving JD Vance compliments, but it was as if they did the same thing they did with Pence in that he's so presidential. He is basically kind of grooming us if he were to take over for Trump, if something goes wrong there, like if something happens. And I kept having that persistent thought. Did you have? And I'll just put it out there because that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, wow, they're really being nice about him. And they're really giving him over the top compliments that kind of make him into this persona of, boy, I think he'd be good at the helm kind of thing. And I did you see that?
I noticed that. Okay. And it was surprising because people were also talking about how the vice presidency is the most inconsequential position in government. And I thought, that may be true, except if they're trying to kill the president.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I don't think those attempts are going to stop just because President Trump wins. In fact, I think they would be accelerated.
Yeah. I think that the pick of JD was very calculated. Very calculated. So, and people knew how he spoke when he became senator. It's not like he just came out of the woods, you know what I mean? So, they knew that he would rule the day last night in that debate. But all right, so let's have some good news. We do need some good news. Yesterday was a heavy news day. Ugh.
It's really hard to wade through news find good news.
It is.
Other than like cheerful, ridiculous birthday stuff or something. But I found two pieces of good news. Okay. One was there is a group of homes that in Florida, and they survived just fine. They were built to withstand Category 5 hurricanes, and they did great. Oh. Their whole bottom floor is solid concrete, and then there's 2 more stories above that. And they survived. They didn't have damage. Their roofs are created differently. And so it tells you they do know. Now, these homes, even though they look like condos, are $1.2 million. But they're saying, now that we understand the technology, we can apply these to less expensive places that people can actually rent or buy cheaply. And so they know. You know they know it. And that became an interesting story to me because of the following story. CBS did a big expose. Yes, CBS actually, 60 Minutes, went back to their roots of doing exposés and exposing how people were being scammed by their insurance company after Hurricane Ian, which was 2 years ago. So they interviewed this guy who was an attorney. He was actually an attorney. And he said, yes, the adjuster came in and said, the problem with Ian was that it stood in one place for 11 hours. And so people's houses, the roofs opened up, water poured in. So they had private adjusters. Everybody's had an insurance adjuster come through and say, yes, we see this damage, this damage. So they estimated, the adjuster did, like $250,000 worth of damage. Basically, the house was going to have to be replaced from the inside out. They got a check from the insurance company for $15,000. They said, wait a minute. And so they interviewed this insurance adjuster. He said, I started getting calls from all these people that I had done adjustments for. He said, this has never happened to me. And it turns out the insurance companies were telling their employees to alter the adjustments, alter the adjustment report. And so instead of a 30 or 50-page report, it was a 10-page report. And the problem, they said, is you have these massive insurance companies, many of whom are new to the state of Florida, for example. The older ones, after a series of hurricanes went through, they got out. They're like, we can't do this damage anymore. We can't keep paying out. So these newer ones came in, and now they're having to pay out the big bucks, and they're trying to stay afloat. Here's the difference. If you are a roofer and you scam an insurance company, boy, the state of Florida comes down on you hard, like a ton of bricks. There's prosecutions. If you're an insurance company defrauding your customers,
you're okay.
Lo and behold, there's investigations with no charges.
Well, it's like Dr. David Martin says, insurance companies actually rule the world, and we don't realize that they have a huge stake and a huge component. They're very protected because it's a lot of money going in the insurance companies because they can game death. You know, the only Kate thought I have on that story is the fact that if 60 Minutes is doing it, they're probably shedding some light on some truth, right? At the same time, are they fulfilling an agenda of more FEMA money, more government coming to the rescue, more money funneled in that money laundering bin called FEMA? I'm sure you thought of that too, because you're like, they always have some sort of agenda in the telling, because they'll tell some truth, right? But I wonder how much of it is that too.
So I have picked up on this little fact that more and more news stories, as people move from California to Texas and Florida, or from the north to Florida, there's more and more news stories about people have soured on the idea of living in Florida.
Okay. See? Be right back. Kate Daly Show. Be right back. More with Susan Reeve when I come back.
Thanks for listening to The Kate Daly Show. All opinion